All right, hello everybody. My name is Jeremy Wustner Brown with the General Services Administration. I'll be the guy behind the scenes, making sure that Zoom does its thing today. A few housekeeping remarks before we get started. Your mics are off by default for all of our attendees. That is intentional. We've got a big group of people today, and we want to make sure that we keep this clean and interruption free. The chat is also mostly off. We might broadcast a message to you all, but you won't be able to chat us. Again, just to keep it organized. If you do have comments or questions, there's a Q&A pod. Please feel free to put any questions you have in there. We've designated some time towards the end for Q&A, so we'll attempt to get to those then. Throughout today's session, to encourage some engagement and to get some feedback from you, we will have a live polling. The way that that'll work is I'll click a little button. You'll also see the polling questions on the screen, on the slide deck, that is. But then you also have a dialog box where you can enter your responses. We'll then close that out, and then you'll be able to see, where you stand or where, the aggregate responses, and we'll sort of talk through those. If you don't see the polling, that's only because you're probably using the browser function of Zoom and not the app. So if you don't have the opportunity to click a button, that's okay. You'll still be able to see the questions, and you'll still be able to follow along. We are recording today's session. So if that is something that's an issue for you, you can exit now. And I think with that, that's everything I wanted to cover. So I will hand it off to Vera Ashworth. She is the government-wide IT category manager and deputy assistant commissioner for GSA's Office of Information Technology category. Vera, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and welcome everyone. We're really excited that you've joined us here for the very first industry day for the IT Vendor Management Office. And Jeremy gave you both of my hats. I have two. Today I'm wearing primarily my hat as the government-wide IT category manager. And in that role, I'm also fortunate to chair the executive steering committee for the IT Vendor Management Office. It's a partnership between OMB, GSA, NASA, NIH, and DoD, really focused on government-wide acquisition intelligence. And we really would not be here today without the vision and support of OMB. And so I'd like to welcome Leslie Field, Acting Administrator for OMB's OFPP, and Maria Rote, the Deputy Federal CIO at OMB, to give us some welcoming remarks. So over to you first, Leslie.
Great, thank you so much, Vera. So launching the IT Vendor Management Office is a really important step in our category management evolution. Based on our success over the last few years, we as a community have seen tremendous value in sharing insights, pricing, data, terms and conditions, and other important acquisition intelligence, especially in IT. The ITVMO will advance all of these important levers to ensure that we are getting the best deal possible. And the concept of a vendor management office is not new. Many agencies have launched VMOs, and OMB really wanted to expand the concept government-wide to leverage our category management lessons and further advance our good stewardship efforts. The effectiveness of the ITVMO to further sharpen the government's IT acquisition intelligence capability depends on the participation of government executives in IT in the acquisition fields, agencies, and critically important is industry to help share data, experiences, market information, and other critical business intelligence. This will allow us to leverage our collective expertise, turn data into information, and increase engagement with each of you, our vendor partners. Having this core team will also help us advance important priorities, such as increasing domestic sourcing and identifying more equitable procurement practices. The ITVMO will better inform CIOs and CAOs of the federal IT marketplace with a special focus on supply chain, cybersecurity, and small business to show progress and improvability to make data-driven decisions. We're really excited about this effort. So with that, let me turn it over to my partner, Maria Rote, OMB's Deputy CIO in the Office of the Federal Chief Information Officer.
Great, thanks, Leslie. As we were developing CEOS, the Civilian Enterprise Office solution, the teams involved in the process really realized the importance of a clear market and acquisition intelligence for government as well as industry. And it was really clear that there had to be consistency in IT pricing, contracts, terms and conditions, and certainly better information sharing across agencies and a unified messaging to the vendor community. We recognize that agencies, they don't always have access to the information that they need to make informed buying decisions. We recognize that very early. And we also recognize that industry did not always have a consistent ask to recommend and how to propose the best IT services and solutions, right? You had a lot of ideas, you had a lot of really good ideas, but what is that venue and how could that be accomplished? So this is where the IT vendor management office comes in. They're going to fill in that critical need for the government. This is by leveraging existing government-wide procurement data, those IT contracts, technical expertise, IT category management, and shared IT acquisition knowledge. And that will enable us to make smarter and more cost-effective decisions. And again, it will be important to maintain two-way communications with government and industry so that we stay abreast of all the IT and acquisition challenges and opportunities. That two-way communication is incredibly important. And this is where the ITVMO is going to help broker the communications and that sustained engagement that we need to have. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here. Please recognize we're looking to partner with you, with industry, to provide the support you need to participate in the federal IT marketplace. Now, I'll turn it back over to Vera. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, as far as the introductions, you can see here that there's a lot of folks involved in this effort. So we've got our champions from OMB listed here. And then the Executive Steering Committee and Darlene Cohen from NASA SOUP represents NASA, Brian Goodger from NIH NITAC, and I believe today we have Paul Lawler on from DoD Army Chess, but James also is participating in the steering committee. And then you'll have an opportunity to meet several folks from the staff and advisory from the ITVMO team. Both within GSA and across the organization. So we're really excited for you to get to know and hear a little bit from each of the folks. Let's go to the next slide. We have a jam-packed agenda in just an hour. And so we want to really kind of introduce you to the services, a little bit of how we got there, which, Maria talked a little bit about, and our goals. And really it's about buying as one enterprise or organization, through category management, as Leslie had mentioned. We're going to update you a little bit on some of our category management strategic actions, and then there's going to be a call to action and some time for Q&A. So before we move further, as Jeremy mentioned, we do have a couple of polls, and so I think we're going to go ahead and do the first one now.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm very excited to have you here today. And before we get into some of our topics, we want to gain a few insights from you. So it's always exciting to know what you're here to learn today and who you are. So we'll have a few polls, as I mentioned, throughout our hour, and we hope you will participate. As a reminder, unfortunately, if you're participating using the web browser, you may not be able to provide responses here. But not to worry. If there is some feedback you'd like to provide and you can't do it through the poll, feel free to email us at itvmo@gsa.gov. We will be looking out for any responses we get there as well. But we'll move to our first question, which is very simple. Why did you join us today? So feel free to take a look at the options that should have popped up on your screen and choose more than one if you'd like. We'll give you a few moments to respond. Okay, and as we mentioned, we have a pretty jam-packed agenda, so I won't stay here too long. Jeremy, if you could share the results so far.
All right, there you go.
Great. All right, so good feedback, and I think we can take care of your interests, so that's always exciting. And while we have you participating, we'll move to the next poll question, if someone could advance the slides. Awesome. So we also like to know who is with us today, who's in our audience. So if you could take a moment and identify the option that best aligns with your primary role, that would be helpful. I want to click buttons, but it says I can't participate. So I'll have to live vicariously through you guys today. Jeremy, can you let us see how folks are responding?
I sure can. Ending the poll now and sharing results.
All right. A nice mix of participants. So we certainly appreciate your time today and hope that we can provide some worthwhile information to you. And I'll turn it back to Vera to talk more about the IT Vendor Management Office. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and jump right into, we're going to talk a little bit about strengthening IT acquisitions with the ITVMO and a little bit more on how we got here. Let's go to the next slide. As many of you know, there's a lot of challenges out there, with the current environment and before the ITVMO was envisioned. There were some duplicative efforts as far as agencies doing things independently and on their own. No real platform to share best practices and lessons learned. We were getting varying prices for the same products and services. So one of the other opportunities we have here is to continue driving use of best-in-class vehicles, mitigate supply chain risk management, also get market intelligence and really be more agile and also address security needs. So that again is part of the, why we created the ITVMO. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Maria mentioned that in looking at some of the collaboration efforts, the need was identified for having this IT vendor management office. And really we sit at the nexus between agencies and government. And this also was part of the CAP goal in FY20 under category management to create the organization. And so if you move to the next slide, October 1st, 2020 was when we launched the ITVMO, again, in partnership between OMB, NASA, NIH, and DoD. And as you can see here, it's really to provide that meaningful acquisition intelligence to inform and support those faster, smarter IT buying decisions. And so, as I mentioned, we're kind of at that nexus between industry and agencies and really trying to bring together and do what's best for the taxpayer at the end of the day. So let's, and again, like that one-stop shop for agencies. And at this point, I will turn it back over to Kyra, who's going to, and she's the team lead for the ITVMO, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the IT vendor management organization.
All right. So if we could advance one more slide to the perfect. So thanks everyone. My name is Kyra Stewart. I oversee day-to-day operations and coordinate program activities. If we could advance to the next slide, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're calling customer segments. So really those folks we care most about. So as called out on this slide, our customers are really those stakeholders who are involved in various parts of the federal IT marketplace. So you'll see program offices within each agencies who are really kind of boots on the ground, making IT buying decisions. Of course, we are also working with the CIO community who are leading the IT acquisition strategy across our communities. And also you, the vendors who provide these IT services and products that help us meet our mission. Over the past year, we've been engaging stakeholders really to best determine where our support is most useful. Vera also often uses an expression that help is defined by the recipient. And we really take that to heart, and we really want to know what matters most to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But as we work to identify gaps and needs, one thing that's really important to us is that we don't duplicate or replace existing agency efforts. We aim to coordinate and provide a unified voice on the procurement front for common IT goods and services. The interest of the vendor community is obviously a very critical piece to supporting all of our customers. And to this end, we'll sponsor and host industry days and events, and we'll hear a little bit more about some near-term opportunities to engage with us to support federal IT acquisition. Next slide, please. Okay. While our name obviously highlights the vendor support focus that we have, we also recognize the importance that the vendor community plays in influencing ITVMO. We are also focused on 5 primary services, 4 of them outside of the vendor focus: data analytics, IT acquisition, subject matter expertise, obviously vendor relationship management. We are aiming to support our best-in-class vehicles and also support SCRIM. As agencies plan for and develop their IT vendor requirements and strategies, they'll be able to leverage artifacts that we've developed or identified to focus on things like prices paid for similar products, standardized terms and conditions, and other things like that. Our resources will help agencies better understand vendor negotiation strategies and best practices, and we really aim to ease and support the process for both agencies and vendors. Our goal is to be a one-stop shop, and you may have heard that already today on IT acquisition intelligence. Now, vendor relationship management will obviously be a primary focus of ours. We'll partner with you to improve government-wide IT acquisition efficiency. In fact, John Ratajewski, our program director, will speak to you about a couple opportunities that we are launching today. But we want to develop really diverse partnerships with industry that include small businesses, OEMs, or VARs, to really be one voice for government that better supports our preparedness for the next generation of IT in the federal space. Next slide. We're excited to launch a new public-facing website. ITVMO.gsa.gov is now live. Information will be added there routinely, so please consider this site your primary tool for engaging and coordinating with us. If you have questions, concerns at any point, you can always email the program at itvmo@gsa.gov as well. Our site will roll out updates regularly, so check back often. We will have information there, resources and tools added regularly. And again, I mentioned that help is defined by you. So our next polling question, if we could, talks to this interest of ours. So please provide feedback. You can choose more than one option if it's relevant. Let us know what information you'd like to receive as vendors from our website.
I feel like we should have music during the polling.
Yeah, we'll work on that for next time. Okay, Jeremy, can you let me know? Let us know the results.
We're still taking in responses. I usually like to wait until we're at about 50%, and we are rapidly approaching that.
I need to calm down. I'm so anxious to see what's important. I'll wait for your prompt, Jeremy.
All right. I feel like that feels pretty good, so I'm going to end the poll. Sorry if you're in the middle of it, and click share results.
Okay. This is really very, very helpful. So in addition to sharing that information with you today, we'll also take that back and consider including it in our phase rollout for the site. So thank you for your responses. Again, thanks for joining us today. I'll turn it over now to Warren Blankenship, the government-wide IT category program manager. Warren's also joined by Peng Chor, our senior management analyst for category management. Warren.
Okay, thanks, Kyra. Good afternoon, all. And as Kyra stated, I am the program manager for the IT government-wide category. The IT government-wide category, which is one of 10 categories across government under the category management framework, focuses on strengthening IT acquisition from a government-wide standpoint. Next slide, please. The ITVMO as a component of the IT government-wide category exists within the IT acquisition ecosystem. And what it does, it partners, collaborates, and supports a variety of programs and initiatives throughout the federal government. On an annual basis, we develop and execute a government-wide IT category strategic plan as part of our ongoing OMB efforts. A part of that plan, and most pertinent to this conversation today, is increasing our efforts to partner with industry to include a special focus on the supply chain, assessment of OEMs and value-added resellers, as well as small business equity and utilization. As shown on this slide, you see our priority to increase small business utilization, where we have a target of 37% for FY21. I believe our category is currently at 35.4%, but we are working diligently to work with small businesses and the small business community at large to increase that measure. We also realize that there are often barriers to entry that prevent small businesses from participating in the federal marketplace. We also recognize the need to strengthen our IT supply chain and mitigate supply chain risk overall. We will leverage government-wide partnerships and existing programs to strengthen the supply chain risk management piece. We will partner with small businesses to break down those barriers to entry and improve utilization government-wide and help advance category and vendor management principles. Also on this chart, you see other key performance indicators we are using to work together as a government to reshape the federal IT spend. Under the spend under management framework, we are partnering with agencies to assist in meeting category management key performance indicators. To that end, this past quarter, we drafted a strategy and approach to research, contact, and recommend an acquisition path for targeted agencies. For cost avoidance, we chartered a Tiger team to assess the data environment and recently completed a feasibility study on the methodology and data analysis improvements for IT professional services. In the coming months, we will look for ways to implement the improvements and further collaborate with other categories, such as the professional services category, to explore other methodologies within the realm of IT professional services. Next slide, please. As a category, we provide a suite of 13 acquisition contract solutions with annual obligations over $70 billion, providing access to best value IT products, services, telecommunications, and total solutions. One of our goals is to increase the use of best-in-class contract vehicles by promoting and sharing best practices and data analysis that they can convey benefits. So best-in-class contract vehicles, or what we refer to them as IT VICs, provide three important qualities to government-wide acquisitions. First, they reduce contract duplication. They help to increase transparency and standardization to better data-driven business decisions for agencies. And they also help to reduce administrative costs and eliminate practices that dilute or reduce the government's shared purchasing power. The 13 IT best-in-class contract solutions under the IT government-wide category represent an array of offerings, including hardware, software, IT professional services, telecommunications, and cloud, among others. And with that overview, I will now turn it over to Ping Chor, who is a senior management specialist working with me on the IT government-wide category activities, to introduce the next polling question. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Warren. I just wanted to add more information on the IT category. Will be provided on the website Kyra referenced earlier. Good afternoon, I'm Peng Chor. I wanted to briefly plug that we have an ongoing effort to develop resources for industry and our partners. And in that spirit, this is our next set of survey questions. We wanted to know which topics are of significant interest to your organization. So please feel free to select more than one, and we'll give you a few seconds to respond. Hey, Jeremy, are the responses still trickling in?
Yeah, we're at about 64%, so we could close it out now. I think that gives us a good sample. I'll hit end
Perfect.
poll and share results.
Great. Very interesting. Great. So thank you again for your inputs. Again, these responses will go a long way in helping us prioritize initiatives and helping us inform the resources that will add the most value to you. So let me just reintroduce our director, John Redajetsky. John, over to you.
Yep, thanks, Ping. And next slide. Next slide. Yeah, hey, so hi everyone, and thanks again for taking time to join us today. So we've heard from some of our executives about the importance of the VMO and some of our staff about kind of what we're about and what we're going to plan to do here going forward. But I was happy to kind of go last in this brief for a couple reasons, because I always have an ask. Those of you who know me in industry know I'm about that. But I really can't overemphasize the fact that we need industry as a partner. And I think we've thoughtfully put together a strategy here that'll allow you to participate. Because I view the VMO as we're really a kind of a broker in the middle. I look at all of our agency customers who come to us for sage advice, maybe review requirements, help them with market analysis, data collection, things of that nature. But we have to be at the ready to really help them, through their acquisition process. And on the other side, without industry, where we're sitting there, with incomplete information, or we have to guess, we're at an extreme disadvantage. So I really want to leverage this broker relationship where I can be, and the VMO can be the conduit in the middle to help, strengthen those comms lines and ensure we get best value out of our acquisitions. So that's really a key takeaway. If you leave with nothing else today, think of the VMO as really your partner, kind of a first stop shop, either for an agency or industry, when you're trying to either determine and find out additional information, or you're challenged with a certain set of questions or problems. We're here to help. So we have really, I think, 4 things that I wanted to drive home today with a couple of examples. The first is, I'll cover the blue boxes here, and if you don't have the slide deck at home, that's fine. I can talk you through it. But we really want to develop in the VMO, help agencies develop holistic solutions. I was in a role at GSA running the IT products group, mainly off of the schedule, the old Schedule 70, which is now the mass schedules. But and I saw this where agencies got in some trouble, and very often where they buy different products, and they're trying to complete and provide a solution for, maybe it's HR or data collection, or they're starting off in emerging tech with AI, any lots of different use cases there. But the challenges is they have to integrate all of those different products together, and it's extremely tough, especially with a lot of the challenges we're having in cyber right now. So I'm going to be looking for industry, and we definitely want to get this dialogue moving, and how industry can help us there. I'll leave you with another thought: is the most often asked question we receive from agencies, and the most need they have is around cloud and cloud services. They're looking for a catalog of services. So they're not looking just to buy like an IIS stack and move forward, or the pass, and they're looking to really provide their agency employees with all the tools they need. And there's a lot of challenges in that. So we'll have some, I'll be introducing some of the ways that we'll have those discussions, moving forward. The second thing is we really need to improve our contract lifecycle processes. I think if you're sitting on the industry side, like I did for many years, before I joined GSA, I'd sit there and said, who the heck put this solicitation out? And how could they possibly expect us to address this set of, obtuse requirements without us having to, we have to add all the risk factors in, right? So prices increase. So, as an example, the real challenge obviously is trying to get the best solicitation out possible. So that's one avenue that we need to talk to you about and really explore. So we get your best practices where, we don't start with a straight stick statement of work. Maybe there's a statement of objectives that we can work with industry on. And the neat thing is there's lots of ways to do that. We have obviously the RFI process, but we're going to talk about some other social media tools that we'll leverage as well. The other thing is, once we have contracts awarded, I think agencies also get stuck where they have problem in execution. Maybe they don't fully understand their terms and conditions, or their requirements aren't fully being met because there's a misunderstanding of, how that contract is executed and what's available on the contract. I typically find out that the industry side does more than their fair share to really, support the agencies. And I think the agencies in a lot of cases don't really understand how to leverage the complete capability that are contained in those contracts. So we'll have, I'd love to have that discussion and to pick your brain on to best, really come up with a set of artifacts and content that we can share with the agencies, provide training, whatever we have to do in the VMO to kind of get that messaging out. So we can leverage everything that you're offering us, in these contracts. The third thing is meaningful content. So we recently launched a website. It's ITVMO.gsa.gov that Kyra mentioned. And it's very sparse right now, and that's by design. So how that's really going to get populated and it's going to be meaningful is when we have your input. So we're going to need to solicit that and collect it and manage that. Doesn't mean we're looking for salesy type stuff. But we are looking for things around the idea of acquisition guidance, case studies, best practices around, acquisition, around technology, around some of the challenges that we're facing in the government. And we'll do a good job, I think, in the VMO at kind of teeing some of this up for all of us. And finally, we're going to need your SME expertise. If we try to put these, complex contracts together without your inputs and without leveraging commercial best practices, we're going to be at an extreme disadvantage, and it's not going to work, very well. So I use an example of a contract that GSA recently awarded, which was Defense Enterprise Office Systems, DOS for short. We were really a partner with DoD. It was it was really their deal, their vision to create, an opportunity where, they could work and tried to, really, they started at kind of with the office suite and really trying to strengthen that set of products. But what we learned a ton, and I know in GSA working with industry, through the RFI process, through industry day, through, a lot of the meetings we had with, with industry, because without industry and their great ideas and, experience would have been a much lesser contract. So there's always challenges in these large contracts, but industry needs to play an important role there. And I trust me, is that when I'm working in the VMO, that's kind of what I wake up to every day is I'm trying to figure out, how do we help agencies, get the best set of product solutions in place, and get best value, out of these contracts. So I'll be reaching out, through a variety of means to support that. Next question, or slide rather. Yeah, so how are we going to do this, right? So those of you who are maybe a little more senior on the line, we have, the round tables, where these are the things that we'll establish out of the VMO, where we definitely want to sit down, and they'll be very specific and tailored topics, so that we can really have an informal dialogue. So today, as you're noticing, it's kind of where we're on the speaker button here from the government side, and that's by design, because we're trying to get out a lot of information in a short time. But the tee up and the promise to come is there's a lot coming your way in the way to engage with the federal government, through the VMO. Not to say you're not going to engage directly with your agency customers. That's a given. But we also want to provide kind of that voice of reason and that kind of providing some of that sage advice that we can, where things are headed, in different areas. So roundtables will be one avenue. I think we're also looking at a request for, we're going to have a crowdsourcing, capability. And Kyra, I don't know if we have the link on this slide. It's on the next slide. Maybe this is the older deck, but
And the next slide, I think we provide
okay,
a link, and it's kind of long, so we'll add it to the
yeah,
chat.
so we'll get that. We'll get a link up. But generally, what we did a couple things here very recently. We released an RFI, and we're looking, and this RFI is fairly simple, right? And we're asking a couple of tailored questions around how do you best communicate with us in the federal government. So it sounds kind of general, but there's a lot of different ways we can do that. So we want to make sure that we can reach you, our industry partners, in a variety of ways, and in a structured way, so that we can make progress. The other thing we'll be doing is surveys, like we did a little bit of polling today, but more detailed surveys. So I think as we move forward, you'll be hearing a lot from the VMO. We have a couple different ways, obviously you can reach us through the website, our email, but we'll be expanding that in the future in partnership with OMB. So next slide. Yeah, so yeah, there's the idea scale link on the right. It's you could, something blocking me here, but
Don, we've also dropped it into the chat for them to be able to click and
yeah, it's in
access.
the chat. But the idea here is we're going to use a social platform that we think has a lot of potential. And this is cutting edge stuff, and it's great. I think the federal government and OMB has done a great job. They have different campaigns going on. They call these the EPIC campaigns, but we'll be part of that in the VMO. We can really engage with you and get all of your ideas and comments, and that's important, right? We want to start. I want to put everything on the table here as the director of the VMO. I don't want to leave anything off. I mean, no idea is too small. I mean, in my experience, everything kind of ties together in some way. But in order to strengthen our relationship and really have a partnership, it has to be a two-way comms avenue. We can't be on the talk button and vice versa. We need to be having the right dialogues. We need to do a better job, I think, in the federal government. We'll do that through the VMO at broadcasting our requirements and really trying to, I think overall advance the maturity of these solicitations, so that you can do a better job, not only bidding these, but winning some of this work. The EPIC opportunities are really going to be generated out of discussions with you. We don't want to go in a priori and decide that these 5 things are worthy. We did that to kind of kick this off, but going forward, we really want to understand and hear from you in industry, what some of your ideas are, you know, along the lines of best practices, along the lines of technology, along the lines of where the federal government should be going in relationship to IT technology, you know, the adoption of emerging technologies, the expansion of cloud, you know, hopefully the deprecation of, you know, products that don't really, you know, play, that maybe some of the legacy products. There's a lot on the table to talk about. So we'll, in the VMO, we're going to have to work with you, and we encourage that relationship where we get a chance to work with you and really kind of shape some of these opportunities. So thanks to OMB for setting this up for us and allowing us to participate. So there is a link that Val shared in the chat that you can register. You can go on this link and register, and you'll see the ITVMO as well as other EPIC campaigns that are available. So we really encourage your participation there. And you can be as chatty as you want, or you know, not so much. The other thing is, if you've got, you know, other thoughts and you just want to be a little bit more you know, private about that, you know, just hit our email link, and we'll work with you that way as well. So there's a lot to do, right? There's to get this relationship moving. So first up is really the RFI that we've generated to get your ideas. You know, ties into IdeaScale. You can either respond to the RFI, you can go to IdeaScale and add your inputs. If you go to the RFI, that may be a good way for some of the larger industry partners to contribute, because that usually RFIs have to have, you know, certain approvals before they, you know, as in the response process, and that may generate some good dialogue in your company. But if not, you know, you can go to the IdeaScale and contribute that way. The main thing is we need your ideas, you know, in any shape or format. And again, we'll thoughtfully here in the VMO start to tee up some of this. But in this first RFI and this first IdeaScale campaign is a couple of questions. How do you want to communicate with us? And then what do you want to contribute? You know, those are kind of some of the key aspects, because I am looking for, to the degree possible, all of your great content. I really want to be that broker in the middle. And to do that, I have to have a VMO website that's fairly it's extremely useful in that regard, that people can leverage it and they can find really useful information on it, and again, you know, start to address some of the questions they have as they're moving forward in their acquisition process. So next slide. Yeah, we're going to go through a poll here in a second, but just to wrap my piece, you know, real quick. Again, thanks for joining us. Today is really the beginning of a journey, I think, where, you know, we are in the VMO, you know, fully committed to this and resourced to support this. We've got great partnerships with NASA and NIH and OMB, as well as a lot of our DoD partners. And we're really excited about trying to move this forward. I kind of taken this on as one of my missions here at GSA, is to really get these relationships strengthened and get the comms lines open. And so we're not making decisions in a vacuum. You know, they're really well thought out, and, you know, nothing surprises you in industry. That's one of the goals, that we should have enough dialogue up front on some of these key technologies, and, you know, how we put together these solicitations so that they make sense, not only for industry and the government, but for, you know, for the taxpayers. So again, thanks for your time. We're really looking forward to hearing your inputs on the RFI and our crowdsourcing platform, IdeaScale, as well as you know, any emails you want to send, and we're kind of standing by to move this ball forward. So thank you.
Thanks, John. And I wanted to kind of add on a little bit, as a few questions have been coming in, just to clarify too. The ITVMO does sit within the IT category management government-wide. And as such, we certainly are advocating for best-in-class vehicles as, one of the solutions. There's a lot that's invested in putting together those best-in-class vehicles for government-wide. But it's certainly, they don't always fit the need for everything. But we also want to make sure that agencies that may not be aware of some of the best-in-class vehicles are educated on them. There was also another question about small business, the metrics. And, just like with SBA goals, it's prime. So the numbers focus on small business primes. So I just wanted to clarify those couple of things as we continue on.
Yeah, Vera, one other point that I forgot to mention. If somebody mentioned it, I apologize, but we are a federal wide office, right? We are not, even though we got the GSA banner, on the website. We are in a partnership with OMB and NASA and NIH and DOD, and we support all federal wide acquisitions as well as state and local. So if you're an industry partner and you're looking to engage, down any one of these paths, then just think of us. We're very agnostic here. So and I think that's a good thing, and that's by design, so that we can really be a partner with you and with our agencies.
Absolutely. So federal, state and local and tribal governments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're there to support them all. There was also a question about the acquisition gateway versus the website, and I can kind of start on an answer on that. And John, you may want to jump more. But the website gives us a better platform because we do want to share more material and information and have more of an interactive dialogue. So John, you want to?
Yeah, the acquisition gateway is an important part of where we're going to host a lot of information, but it's kind of tied off to, and it's industry can't access it, easily, or in some cases not at all. And so we really wanted to put up a website that was easy to find, but we'll have strong linkages to that, as well as an OMB Max site that's kind of federal only for some of the more sensitive issues that we'll be dealing with in the BMO. So we plan on using all of these tools. Really, it's a tool in the toolbox where we're a little bit further ahead on the website, but we'll be catching up with our gateway to get all that content posted, as well as making sure OMB Max is aligned. So thanks, Vera.
Excellent. Kyra, did you want to address, there are a couple of other questions that are in there as well, as far as idea scale accessibility to industry?
Absolutely. So yeah, great question. We're excited about our usage of Idea Scale. It is available to industry. We will add the link again if we can to make sure you all have access. There are login requirements. There is a process. It's relatively simple to create your account, and that allows you to follow the conversation. So we encourage you to do that. It's a relatively new tool that's been rolled out. So I think you may expect to see more idea campaigns there as well. So we're happy if you log in and you get started with us, but I think it'll be worthwhile as there'll be future opportunities to engage with government using that tool. Okay. We have a few minutes left, so please take advantage of the opportunity to submit questions to the Q&A function on the site. So we are here and happy to answer. Well, we take advantage of the time. Any closing thoughts from any of our program participants? Anything to add? I know we've talked a lot today.
And I would just say it's the engagement is what we're really excited about, and that collaboration. And, for those of you who do know me, I'm celebrating my 1-year anniversary of return to government later this month. And so one of the things I always love is rolling up sleeves and working together, government and industry, and government-wide. There was a question in there about other agencies, and I think John addressed it pretty well. And I did skip over the governance, talked in a little more detail about the different organizations that are part of the ITVMO currently, but we really are here to serve all of government.
Great, thank you. There was a question that came in about our collaboration with GSA, NIH, NASA, and DOD, and it talked about the relationship with DHS. I have some input, but any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think definitely that we're supporting all of government. And of course, one of my fellow category managers is at DHS. And so we are one big happy family.
And other agencies that we didn't mention, we've had the good fortune to present on the ITVMO across government. So we're happy to talk about the program. So if by chance you are supporting an agency directly, I encourage you to ask them to reach out and we can look at opportunities to collaborate or partner with them as well.
Yeah, the other thing I'd mention, Kyra, is that, you know, when we set up the VMO with OMB in their direction and through the executive steering committee, we really had a 5-year window to kind of reach full maturity. So this first year, I mean, we had some great dialogue with OMB and NIH and SOUP, and they agreed to join and support either through some contract dollars or FTE support, which is great. And we expect in the future to expand that. We're going to need to expand that, you know, moving forward as the VMO grows. But so this is a starting point, and we're happy to have a discussion. And we will be having discussions with other agencies, you know, big vehicles, as well as you know, other large contracts as well. So, thanks.
Right, and I think it would be a good time, you know, to pause also and see if some of our other, you know, folks from NASA or NIH or Army would like to add anything, since we do have a little bit of time.
We certainly appreciate the support from all of our partners. It's a relatively new program. We like to reference the crawl, walk, run kind of approach to doing business. So we're certainly looking to mature and to work even more with our partners and support their needs and really leverage their expertise to support all of government. So many thanks to them for their help so far, and thanks in advance for their continued support.
Absolutely. And in, you know, getting to the point of the launch, all the organizations worked really closely together, as well as, you know, getting kicked off. And, you know, when we started doing the long list of priority things that we wanted to do, you know, as Cara mentioned, that's when we kind of said, hey, you know, help is defined by the recipient. Let's see what do the agencies want by polling the CAOs and the CIO community, the councils. So we're really, you know, here to help on the most emergent problems and issues. And as John had mentioned, the IPTs are a great way for us to come together and tackle those issues. We're a small team, but we have a long list of things we want to do. And so we're definitely looking to that partnership across government as well as with industry.
Small but mighty, Vera.
That's right. We are small but mighty.
Yeah, I did see a question. I was looking through the questions, Vera, one on metrics. So how do you measure success in the VMO? You know, I want to be totally transparent on that one. That's a first of all, a great question, because when you're in a business, you gotta measure yourself. So how are we doing? And I didn't want to just throw out, well, we answered so many calls, or, you know, we responded to so many emails. So as a broker in the middle, we're working some really hard issues, you know, along the lines of, you know, cloud, helping with, you know, standard terms and conditions. And so I think we're in a place where we're trying to add a lot of value. When we get agency questions or sharing an IPT around a particular vendor, we're really thoughtful and just trying to add value to their existing acquisition, where they come in and they may have something that's 90% complete, and we say, hey, you know, you need to really add these terms and conditions, or you need to have this as a negotiation tactic, or you know, and again, it benefits both, I think, the agencies and industry when we do that. So I'll pay attention to that question going forward, because I think we really need to think about, you know, how do we measure that value? And it's a little subjective, right? And depending on where you sit in the organization, what you thought you've done. But a lot of cases where we're kind of, at least on the agency side, kind of silent partners, where they call us, we'll solve a problem and help and have a discussion, and then they move on. And, you know, I'm not really sure how to check the box and say, hey, we just did some great work. I think we're a little bit humble here. That's our job, is to support our federal customers. So anyway, thanks for the question, Jason. I appreciate it.
And from time to time, we get questions about capabilities and demonstrations and things like that from vendors. So we are working closely with our emerging tech and innovation groups. And so they are happy to support us in understanding more about what's available from industry. So if you want to shoot us an email at itvmo@gsa.gov, we can help determine who's the best group to learn more about your company and speak with you. John used the word broker, and that really is integral to what we do. We are a small team and we don't do everything in-house. But one of the things that we're charging ourselves with is making sure that we're well connected across government. So in many instances, we are aiming to put you in touch with the right folks. We aren't going to duplicate what's happening anywhere. We don't need to impede on other folks' swim lanes, but there are lots of dynamic things happening, and we want to be that first stop, that one-stop shop to connect you. So any general questions you have about things in the IT acquisition space, feel free to email us. We may not be the main person you end up speaking with, but we can certainly put you in touch.
Yeah, I saw one additional question, Kyra. What type of data analysis would be most helpful? You know, great question. And so we have you know, people dedicated to that, where we're really scrubbing our FPDS data, and we're looking at spend and the types of products that are being sold. But we definitely want to have a forum and a roundtable around this issue, because I think we're missing some things in our forecasting where we could really you know, benefit from industry and kind of where you see technology going. And that would help us, I think, do a better job at providing you know, up-to-date content. So I think that'd be a great roundtable discussion, because I think, you know, we need to share what we actually have and what we're doing, and then work with you in industry to fill the gaps. So I look forward to that discussion. See, I was kind of picking and choosing the questions here, but some of them we've already answered.
Yeah, and there's a question about some of the other acquisition vehicles across government. As we mentioned, we are agnostic. We are not focused on any one vehicle. So if there are members from participants, owners of acquisition vehicles, reach out to us. We look to amplify all of the good things that are happening across government. So we're building out our website. So if we can provide links to your resources or help agencies who are looking to buy find the right options to do so, let us know. We'd love to support you and promote options that you provide.
Yeah. And I think we have about 2 minutes to go, so we may want to hand it over to Vera.
I think this has been a great launch for us, and really kind of sharing what we're thinking about and what we're looking at. We're really looking forward to the responses from industry and your engagement, whether it's in a roundtable or through the idea scale or through you know, the various methods that we're going to be reaching out, the RFI and so forth. So with that, I would really like to thank all of our guests for speaking, you know, Maria and Leslie for helping kick us off, to the entire ITVMO team, as well as all of our partners, which, you know, across all the agencies. And so I want to thank you all for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.